Hey, how are you? Okay, so we'll start in this other room here. Gentlemen.
Hey, how we doing?
Good, how are you? Okay, be careful, it can be slippery. So this is the saw, we call it the sawmill. Originally, when I first started almost 30 years ago, this actually was a separate building off to the side before we put the two buildings together. And we had a saw. We would get the big logs from the trees, bring them in here, and then we would saw them into boards, whether it was the spruce for the tops or the Brazilian rosewood or Indian rosewood or whatever. We would bring it in here, cut the logs so we can make the boards for the guitar. Now, what we do now is we buy, the boards are already made for us. We don't cut logs anymore, but we do use the boards. And then we have these special machines over there that they take it and slice it into thin pieces. And then those thin pieces, you can open for book matching. Mostly we buy to cut to what we call resaw, but we could buy some special wood that's still big, thick boards that we have to slice, like sinker mahogany or some special, maybe like Guatemalan rosewood or whatever. But we will do that. We'll bring it in here and we cut it. We also take here boards like this. We call it billets. And with this billet, they take a template and draw the outline of the neck, and they cut necks out of these pieces. And then it gets processed and made into the shape of a neck. So out of a piece like this, they might make maybe two necks. So this could be either mahogany or cedar, depending on which. We use both. They're both almost identical in ability for a neck and the strength. When we get exotic woods, like for example, this is, what do we got here? East Indian rosewood. Okay, so when we get it, if you can feel it, it's still a little moist. It's not dry yet. Okay. So what we do is we get it from the manufacturer or the company like this, and then we have special drying rooms. They're like ovens. They're big ovens, and we put it in there, and they're computer controlled. So what they will do is they will, little by little, reduce the moisture in the wood so that it can be processed and it's stable. It's almost like a tropical jungle in there. It's very hot and very humid. So that would be the first place it goes. Bring it down to a certain level, then it would go into one of these in here that are computer controlled. So that's how the wood is taken care of. Some woods don't need drying, others do, like the rosewoods especially. Okay, so this is, we call it the acclimating room, where the wood gets stored anywhere from, like, I don't know, a couple weeks, it could be to, I think some wood's been here at least 1.5 years, just to keep it flowing. If you notice, this wood in here is only what we're going to use for production. All right, it's not, we have a lot more wood than this, but this in the distribution center, the big boards, everything like that, there's a lot of wood in there. So we're going to talk later about the distribution center, but for now, this is the wood that we're going to be working with over the next couple months. Can you feel the air circulating in here? Okay, so we have a process where we take the wood like this. We just take sticks of wood, just plain sticks like this, and we put it in between the layers of wood. So after it comes out of the drying rooms, we put them on these pallets, and we put layers of the wood down, and then we put these sticks, so that the whole idea is so that the air circulates through it. So the temperature in here is always about, it's about 22 Celsius. And the humidity is anywhere between 45 and 50%. So it's always constant and the wood stays stable. We want to keep the wood so stable so that when we're manufacturing, that's what this is. Also, Thomas mentioned that we're very interested in sustainability and conservation. So these lights in here will light up only when there's people here.
Oh.
So that we don't use that much electrical power. So if we walk, down here, it'll turn them on, and then after a few minutes when we're gone, if the people aren't here, it just shuts them right off. So it's the same thing. So we have a lot of, so this Sitka spruce for the braces. We also have, for mahogany back and sides. One thing that is very important because of, again, environmental. If you see a purple paper, it means that we know who cut it. It means that we know how it's been, the whole, what they call chain of custody. Because for us to have what we call FSC, Forest Stewardship Council certified, we have to be able to provide documentation from start to beginning that it is ecologically or environmentally handled. It's not crazy logging or anything. It's always done according to environmental, yes. So whenever you see us selling a guitar that says FSC certified, it all begins with every piece of wood that we get or anything that is like the same thing with it's either the pearl or it has to be fake pearl. Everything has to be environmentally according to the rules. So when you see an FSC guitar, you know from the very beginning that we've taken care of it environmentally. So just, again, all this wood is stored here just for what we're going to be using over the next few months. Like I said, a lot of it is kept over in the distribution center, which is about 5 miles from here. And this is only tiny. Wow. This is tiny. So what this whole corridor does is almost like engineering design, engineering blueprints. And we show the tourists who come through here how we process the wood, basically. So for example, here in these big pieces of wood we call billets, you can see how we do a template shape here. This is how the neck, this is how they cut out the neck. So imagine this big piece here. They take a template, draw on it, and then they take it by handsaw, and cut it into these big shapes like this. So these are what we call neck blanks, because it's just the basic first step once you have a neck shape. So here's what a neck blank looks like. To make the neck blank, they put a hole, they route a ridge, a groove in here, a little hole so that this is where the truss rod goes in here and the fingerboard goes on here. These little pins, the easiest way to make a guitar consistent is to always make it the same way. So you're gonna see throughout the process where we have little guiding pins that help always line things up the same way. In the old days, they did it by eye and it was very time consuming. But nowadays, when we build almost 200 guitars a day, you can't just eyeball it. It would take forever. So we've found ways to make that faster, So once these neck blanks are made, then we put them on big computer machines that go through and cut it. So this is an example of one transformed from this into you can see it transformed like the shape coming out, like a sculpture, like Michelangelo.
So it has like a CNC machine.
Yeah, it's a CNC machine, okay. Exactly. Okay. So this one here is just, we show you half and half. And then this is like a finished shape, or mostly finished. Same thing, these are the blanks for the fingerboards. They come out like this. This you would have seen in the wood storage room. They would be on sticks, so that air breathes through it. So this is ebony. Typically it's ebony or you could use a rosewood or some similar hardwood. Then it gets cut and shaped like this, with little holes put in, for example, in this case, for the dots, fingerboard dots, and slotted for the frets. All right. This is just a standard, like a D28 fingerboard. Some other ones, they get a different routing on it if you're going to put hexes in it or diamonds and squares, depending on what it is. But we're using a 28, for example. Bridge blanks. Start off with a piece of wood like that. You can see CNC machine takes it and gets it into the shape, as you see there. And depending on the cut, this is a sample of like just a regular, like a standard bridge. But we have what we call a through bridge. It cuts slots all the way through. Depends. We have different style. We have different style bridges. So top binding, which we're going to see in a few minutes or whatever. So piece of wood's like you saw downstairs. They're glued together. Then the tops are cut out. These things here are indexing holes. So what they do is you'll see when we put the tops and bodies together that all these holes have a reason, because there's pins that line everything up so that the tops are always straight. Braces. And we start off with like spruce. We could, usually there's Sitka spruce. If you have an Adirondack top, they would be Adirondack braces. And the tone bars. So it's just, we now have a machine that actually, what they used to be cut individually in shape, now we have a machine that slices them and gives them the shape. Bridge plate, usually typically maple. All the bodies you'll see we're going to put together, they have these, this ribbon lining. And what that does is it's glued in here to the side so that it gives an edge so that the top will adhere. Because if it was only the thin edge, they would come apart. So you need a ribbon lining like this. And you'll see when we go around. So this is just everything so that when you see the process in the works, you'll understand where all the parts come from. Different types of wood we can use. This one is very hard to get, but we do have some still available. We have some Madagascar available. These are the blocks for the guitar, what we call front and rear block. We have solid wood ones, and then we have laminated wood, which is also pretty strong. These are more for sustainable use guitars or environmentally friendly. Same, we have woods for the front, for the backs. So this is the sides and the backs over there. We take wood like this for this ribbon lining and put it through a machine which cuts it into this shape like a W and puts cross cuts like this, and then it separates them so that this is flexible. I'll give you a piece later in the tour, but this is flexible so that it bends and can be glued all around the rim. And then the back braces, center strip. So when we have the tops or the backs picked out, so we have to put the two pieces of backs together. So there's a process called book matching. So, it's like when you open up a book, there's one page here, one page here. Well, for us, book matching means we take from two pieces of wood that are cut together and we open them like this so that the grains are like mirror, all right? And then we have to glue them together. So to glue them together, we have to make sure that this edge is perfectly straight, like this, and then we usually put a strip in the middle for decoration. So here, you can see what they're doing is that they've taken the pieces of wood, they make a straight edge, put glue on the edges and a strip in the middle, and these machines are a clamp. They hold the pieces down flat and close together. So that's what this is doing. So this is, these are, we call them clamp carousels, and it goes around. By the time you put one down and it comes all the way around, it's already dried. So like you did this one, then it goes. So by the time this one comes back, it's dry. You could see the wood on like that top there, that rosewood back that's on there.
Yeah.
You could see that it's book match, right? So there's the tables here behind us, underneath us. There's guys always checking the wood to make sure that it matches. And then we have to pick sides that look like they're from the same tree. They're not exactly from the same piece as that, but we pick them so that they look like they're from the same piece. One important thing for guitar tops is that they be pretty good quality throughout. Sometimes when you cut a piece of spruce or whatever, even though it's a thin layer, maybe between the outside on one side and the other side, there can be a little bit what we call pitch pockets, because it's basically the spruce is like a pine tree, so it has like a sticky goo, like it's sap.
Yeah, sap.
Okay, so sometimes there could be little bits of sap trapped inside that you don't see,
Right.
and that absorbs the sound. It takes away the tone. So we do like in the old days, the farmers, when they did the chicken eggs, to make sure that the eggs didn't have little chicks in it, they would do what we call candling. Pick a candle and look, make sure there's no chickens in it. So we do the same thing. We look at the wood through the light, and we look and see where there's problems. So this sample shows where there's some problems. This template here is like where the pickguard would go, where the sound hole is, where the bridge goes. If it's in one of these areas, it's maybe not so much a problem because it's glued. But if it's in any of the other areas, then we reject it. We use the wood for other things. And so to cut the shape, to produce it, we have these machines here. They're a laser. It's just like a printing machine. So you have the design, the outline of the body shape. So instead of it printing on ink on paper, it actually works like a laser, just cuts through the wood. But it's the same concept. All right, so we could do the tops, we could do the backs. All right? And the sides, because the sides aren't perfectly straight. They have a little bit of an angle because of the shape of a guitar is different. So this is all done on these printers. It's one thing that's really important because, like, remember we talked about safety. So if you notice, all of these machines, everything, has special vacuums that go into the dust collecting system. All this like aluminum dust collecting. Every 3 meters, there is a sensor that checks for if there was ever a fire. It shuts off the whole system.
Wow.
And it can spray a killer, or like a extinguishing, right? So the reason being because there's so much dust from the wood. If you notice, it's so very clean.
So clean.
But all the dust goes, we vacuum it into these ducts, this dust system. And rosewood dust, the wood dust from these things could be or mahogany dust is so explosive. It's almost like having gasoline or something. So that's why it's all sucked through, and that's why there's every 3 meters sensors that would sense a spark or anything. Like for example, one of these machines, a couple years ago, one of the cutting heads, the bearings got hot, they just wore out. And so the heat went up in there and the machine sensed it detected it, it shut everything off. And of course then an alarm goes off and all the employees go outside until they find the spot, and then we can come back in. But that's how much safety is important to us. So one thing that's important is all the dust that we collect from all the processes here. We take all the dust and compress it into like a brick, a little bricks about that big.
Right.
And there's a company that buys those from us and burns them to heat water to make steam for their manufacturing process. They need to make steam. So we're trying to recycle everything.
Wow.
And all this wood would be recycled as well so that it's used. And if there's anything we can use in our own process, we will. So it's important now. So this is one of the processes here, right here. After the top is cut over here on the laser, it's cut to this shape with these ears or indexing things, we call it. So then the tops are then taken and put on a machine that cuts these grooves into it. All right. Then the top is taken, like Steve is doing over here. So then he puts glue in the cutout parts, and then he knows what, depending on what model we're building, he picks the different binding materials and rosette inlay, and he knows that from the spec of it's a D28, it gets this. If it's a D42, it gets that. So you can see he puts that all in there and glues it in. Now there's one that's a little bit different. It's the same idea, but like for a D40, anything that has a pearl rosette will get a clear plastic strip in it. And I'll show you down the process, but it gets a clear plastic strip that doesn't stick to the wood, because later on we're going to pull it away and fill that with that plastic strip gets pulled away, and we fill it with a pearl. Then once these are dry, they put this, there's another cutter that will actually cut out the sound hole. And then we use those sound holes for tourists, for visitors, you know, it'll say factory visit or whatever. We engrave those. So that's how this part is done. Custom shop, and here's where we'll make all the aged authentics, custom shop expert models, or like whatever custom you order. Right. Like we made like the 𝐷 would have been made separately here. Most of it's like some things it has to go to the finishing line like a regular one, but most of the other stuff is done in here. So here you'll see what they do is they glue these pieces on. This is the ribbon. Okay, so that gets glued on in here, and they make sure that, you know, it just gets held on with clips, and then they clean it, especially with customs, you know, because people pay a lot of money. They don't want glue squeezing out or anything like that. So we try to be very, very cautious. Sometimes a little bit gets missed, but we try to be very, very cautious about that. So this is where they would glue the ribbons on. Now Now this is like I said, a mini cell of whatever we do everywhere. So you'll see a lot of these process again down the line. But a guitar will be put in a form. You notice that the forms have holes here. You notice that they have those holes. So when they put the top and the back on, they put pins in it so that it makes sure it's always lined up. So it's lined up here, here, and here, always, so that it's never out of line. So here, we're fitting the necks to the bodies. So they're doing whatever they need to do. They'll glue the heel caps onto the necks, you know, fitting them to the bodies like Steve is doing over here. And then they're ready to go to the pre-finishing area to get them. So if there's any little rough spots from the CNC machines, they take those out, make sure everything is fit and lined up. See, so what he's doing right now, he fits the neck and he makes sure that the heel cap lines up with the binding.
Okay.
You can see he's lining it up there. So he's pressing it in, but it doesn't get glued in yet because it gets finished separately. They get finished separately. That's a pretty custom guitar.
Yeah.
The wood on that is very pretty, no? I think that's wild East Indian rosewood. Hey Steve, is that wild East Indian?
Yeah.
Yeah, that back is amazing.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's almost like perfectly painted. That's gorgeous. It gets a maple, it looks like it's getting maple binding and a maple heel cap. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty nice custom guitar. He's lining it up to make sure that the angle and everything is correct. So Alex when we get the necks made off the CNC machines, they're not to the exact, like if you wanted to make them like an antique or like the aged authentics or, you know, like a vintage style. So the neck has to get a slightly different finish profile on it. So they come over here and Alex mounts them on a neck shaper. And then he has little gauges that measure the angles and the corners and the roundness. So he will measure, see that he's got a metal gauge right now. And he'll look at different, I'm gonna stick my finger in here for a second. So he's gonna measure curves here, 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 and make sure that they're all to that shape. This is the area where we do for the custom inlays. So if you had a special custom that you wanted, Chris can either design something, or if you had a design, he can digitize it so that it can be inlaid into fingerboards. And for example, here's something he's working on. It can also be done into the top or the back. So he does it, digitizes it, whether it's his design or whatever, and then he's got some machines here, these little mini CNCs. And what that'll do is, one of them can cut, well, I don't know, I guess I call it like the negative, and then the other one will cut the positive. So if you're gonna do an inlay, one will cut out where you're gonna put the stuff in, and the other one will cut out the stuff that you're going to put into it. So he's working on that, and he sends them to us. And then what Chris does is he makes sure that the pocket is cut out, right? And then the coin is put in, and we use like you use a clear epoxy, right? Yes. He puts a clear epoxy on it and seals the coin in, and then we sand, it gets the finish on it, but it's finished. But he did, this is your design, right? The snake and the sword?
They gave me that artwork, but I had to like mention it.
Yeah, okay, so, but yeah, we could do this. So, I mean, if you had an idea of something you wanted, you could just let us know.
Okay.
And again, there's no limit. It's not like you have to buy 50 or you know.
Just 1, 2, or 3 or whatever.
Yeah, if you have
the customer want to order.
Yeah, that's up to you.
Right.
They would just go through the custom shop. Thank you, Chris. Yo, did you want?
Thank you.
Yeah, you can see it more closely if you want. This is the first year I've seen a coin that had a color on the, like the snake color. But he buys, like if we make 15 guitars, he buys like 16 coins, and we always use one to test to make sure that it works. Here, we're bending the sides to the shape, and then we put the bodies, what we call the frame or the outer shell. We put that together. It's the rim of the guitar, so it's all put together here. We have these special patterns. Everything, as you notice, again, they have the holes for indexing. So everything, you can't go. It's like a pattern that you always have to put everything in the same spot. And we try to make it so that even somebody who's is a new employee can't make a mistake. Again, notice that there's patterns that he has to use. Okay, so those inserts make sure that the ends of the sides come together and they line up perfectly, see? And they're clamped in place. And he takes the blocks, makes sure that they have the right number for that body. So the blocks have little holes on the one side. They fit over little pins, so it's always in the same spot. Now it's set aside to dry. So the holes here and on there, if you see there's pins on the bottom of the
Yeah.
so it's always going to line up. And then next thing he'll do is he'll take a cloth and make sure that all the glue that's on here, he'll clean that off so that people don't see it when they look inside the guitar. So here you can see how they glue the ribbons on. Hey, how are you? Good. So they take this ribbon. You can see how flexible it is now, right? So he trims them down. He's got a little thing where he knows how long they're supposed to be. Then he'll run them over a wheel that has glue on it, so that the one side gets glue, and then he can put them on the actual guitar. So there's the glue. He'll run it over, almost like they used to do with the stamps in the old days. So now it's got glue on it. So then he does the same for where the back will go and then where the top will go. So a couple different stations doing the same thing. These laser cutters, like we'll do different, depending on the operation we need. So for instance, right now, this is making the center strips that go inside the guitar. So it'll, with the logo, crafted in Nazareth, all that stuff, it goes on the inside, inside the back. We have two of them. So that's a laser engraving on there. So it's very important because the tops all have bracing. So on the ribbon, if you notice, there's little cutouts because the brace has to fit in there. Otherwise, it would just not glue down, right? So they put that there. So he'll put the back on there in the press that pushes them together and they glue. And again, they take about, what do they take, about a half hour? 15 minutes. Okay, so this is even faster. So we use tight bond glue here. It's we use either a white one or a yellow one. So right here for this process, we're using the yellow tight bond. So then he puts the top on it, makes sure it fits, so that you can see the brace will go right into that little cutout. So one comes out. He takes off that, puts that on. And you can see it has the pins on the form.
Yeah.
Even a steel string flat top guitar still has a little bit of a curve. So these sanding machines here are cupped like a contact lens. So they have a little bit of a curve. So they take the guitar, one machine does the top side, and the other, when you flip it and it goes to the other one, it does the back side. So it gives it just a little bit of a curve. So when we glue it on, because you need the tension to move the top up and down. It has to have, like a speaker, it has to have a little bit of a curve. So this is done before the tops and backs are glued on. This machine here, and it cuts the edge. That's why you need a ribbon lining as well. So it cuts the edge, and that's where we lay the bindings in.
Okay.
All right. So depending on the model, it cuts at different depths. So then they test it. It knows it's going to get he knows it's going to get a certain kind of binding. So he's got a piece there. It's got to fit just the right size. So we try to mix old craftsmanship with new technology. And so little automatic glue dispenser puts it down. She puts the glue in, puts the binding down, and then puts tape on it. This special tape so it doesn't leave sticky stuff on the wood. So over here, just like you saw on the other side for the custom, this is where they pre-fit the necks. So the way this works here is he fits one neck to one body by hand. That neck will not fit another guitar without having to be recut. So they get matching numbers, and then after they're fitted and make sure that everything's at the right angle and the right fit, he separates them, and one goes, they go different places to get finished, and then they come back together at the end. So it's like a marriage. They get engaged here, and then they get married at the end. This is where we take the fingerboards, put the frets, press the frets in, and then after that we also put the side dots. They get trimmed so that they're not sticking out, whatever, and they're sharp. So that's this whole area here. This is very simple. It's just a body sanding. So all this equipment, these stands where the guitar turns around and everything, we make ourselves. We have our own shop to make as much of our own equipment as possible.
Wow.
Including, we make our own string winding machines. We make a lot of equipment. So also then these sanding booths are designed so that all the dust that they sand goes down and in and it's all collected through the pipe. So if they don't want to wear a mask, they don't have to. This area is for just getting the necks ready for the finishing. So they just check it. They use the gauges to make sure that they're the right shape and things like that. These necks are all done by CNC, not hand like in the custom shop. So they just check it and get it ready to go. Like if for some models they have like the diamond on the back of the neck, we call it a volute. You know, to make sure that it's sanded nice and smooth for the finishing. The guitars all have most guitars, some we've made with what we call a porous finish, but most of them have a smooth finish, right? It's filled in. So because wood has this porous, we put a filler in it. It's like a brown paste that looks like this. And then we push it in with polishing machines. You could see that's the only really messy place in the factory because that stuff is like tar almost. And so it gets put on in there and machines push it into the wood and then we clean it off. But what happens is that brown will make the binding brown stain dirty a little bit. So we have to clean it. We cut the blades. Instead of throwing them away, we use them, we recycle them. So we take the blade and we cut it into little pieces and put an edge on it so that we could use them as special shaving things to clean the bindings. So over here we go through the bodies, make sure everything's fine. If we're trying to finish them, we have to make sure that, you know, if there's any imperfections, we fix it, do whatever. So this is like the first stage of finishing in here. It gets like a sealer coat before it goes through the lacquer. So that's what they're doing. They're checking little details of everything.
Oh, บานเลย
So
is this all ours?
some of them probably are. We're giving you as many as we can every time they come through. Right here.
Oh, it's warm.
It feels like Florida.
โอ้อบห้องนี้อบมาก
So like if customers can give us the guitars here to repair or people send them in or sometimes we'll get them back from a distributor that needs something. We check it here, whatever. So we have excellent repair technicians here to do that. What they'll do is the arm will pick up a guitar with the suction cups, run it, does the one half, the back half and half of the sides, and then it'll put it down, flip it over, go to the other side and polish the other half, and that's a rough polish. And then it'll go to the next buffer machine, which is a fine polish. So it does it all and it takes minutes, whereas it used to take about 40 minutes for one person to do it with a machine and it hurts their back because the machine's heavy. So all day long. So this do perfect work. And this is the same kind of robots that they use in the automobiles. So if you remember, I said that when they do the inlays for the rosette or whatever, if we're going to put pearl in it, we have to put a filler strip in to leave a space. So if you notice here, see this is like a clear plastic. So when they put pearl in, they take this out so they could put the pearl pieces in it, like cut out from, you know what kills me is whenever I go to like China or even Japan and you eat the abalone, they always throw the shells away. And I'm like, every time I go to the restaurant, I always ask for them and I bring them home.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to, but I do anyway. I wash them out and I bring them home because they make just beautiful ornaments. But so this, they take this and they actually slice it very thin and glue it to like a special
Resin.
Yes, and then it's called ablam. So it's a laminated pearl, but that way it's more ecological. If you notice where the bindings meet here, This is what we call mitering.
Mitering.
Yeah, M-I-T-E-R-I-N-G. And that is, so the black will meet the black, white will meet white, black will meet black, pearl will meet pearl. So when they cut the pearl, they have to cut special angles so that it joins up perfectly. So that is what they're doing over here.
Wow.
Here he's cleaning out the grooves where the pearl is going to get inlaid and the binding. Here's where he's going to do the corners and they do that mitering thing that I told you. Now this gets covered up by the fingerboard right there, I think, right?
Yep.
But the mitering will be here, I believe. Yep, so this, so you're going to have to miter here too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so then, so these two and this and here, so those corners will meet like that. It's very labor intensive. Now, how long does it take you to do a top like this? Roughly. Just,
Like hour and a half.
when we say precision craftsmanship, you know, the marketing people say that,
Yeah.
that's what they're talking about.
Right.
I mean, all the tools are made especially for what they do.